I think the thing that makes an evidence strategy truly cross-functional is to get to the core decisions that our stakeholders need to make. Because a lot of the times, multiple stakeholders have the same kind of evidence needs, but you need to understand where they're coming from, bring in all of the insights from the external world, and come together to think about that and to think about how you turn those needs into something that can be acted on. And that requires bringing together a cross-functional team to really think about what you need, when you need it, and how it's going to be used. I think one of the biggest challenges is just really understanding what decision all of your stakeholders need to make, because those decisions drive what evidence is needed to base the decisions on, which then in turn drives the evidence generation. And you need to really think cross-functionally, cross-regionally, cross-stakeholder about what those decisions are, what you need, and when you need to get started to make sure that you have the evidence that you need on time so that true evidence-based decision making can happen on the part of the regulators, the payers, the prescribers, and ultimately the patients who need to take the treatments for their various conditions. So starting too late is one of the biggest challenges that we see in this space because generating evidence takes time. And that's true whether we're talking about incorporating what we need to learn into a randomized controlled trial, whether we're doing it through real world evidence, or just talking to our various stakeholders through market research or conversations with patients. We need to really think about what evidence we need for which audience, but also when the decision is going to be made that that evidence is going to inform. That's absolutely key. And if you don't get that right, then people are making decisions based on just prior beliefs, what's out there in the literature, maybe some assumptions, rather than the great evidence that you're generating. And in order to avoid that, you really need to have a truly informed cross-functional discussion, bringing in your clinical development, your medical affairs, your commercial, your market access, your regulatory, all of those partners to think about your stakeholders, what they need, when they need it, and when you need to start to get it to them when they need it. That has to be a conversation that's happening early enough and being updated as things change in the external environment. Otherwise, you really risk just not getting your medicine out to the patients who need it quickly enough because you didn't do the planning early enough to make a difference. Yeah, managing the global local interface is actually one of the biggest challenges because in the end, all of the decision making is local. You're talking about local payers, local regulators, local HCPs and guideline committees, local patients. And the understanding of what all of those stakeholders need to make a decision is local. And that's coming in through MSLs, through the field force, through lots of different channels. That's what informs your global strategy. And I think that's really the key, is to have a locally informed global strategy that says these are our priorities for what evidence we need, when we need it, for whom. This is how we're getting that. And then that in turn gets communicated back to local in a way that they can actually use it. But that's not all, because sometimes there's going to be local needs that don't quite rise up to the level that it falls into a top corporate priority. And in that case, you need to have the flexibility to let your local teams generate the evidence you need, as long as it doesn't go directly against your corporate strategy. A lot of the times that's going to be real world evidence because in a lot of countries, they're not going to have the capacity to do a full clinical trial to answer the need of one of their local stakeholders. And that's okay because there are so many great opportunities to use evidence from the real world to really understand the local population. build that on top of what's being generated as an evidence generation at the corporate level, and come up with something that really, truly meets those local needs so that the medicine can get out to the people who need it. I am so excited for this summit in December. I attended last year and was really impressed by the kinds of cross-functional conversations that we were having across people from different areas of responsibility, but also different kinds of companies, different countries, and just bringing together all of those voices, all of those perspectives to think about how we get our launches right. Because at the end of the day, we don't want to delay getting a treatment out to the patients that need to have it, and getting our launch right, making sure all of the stakeholders are taken care of, making sure we've thought through the strategy is really important. And this is a group of people that do that every single day. And it's just so much fun to have those conversations in the main meeting, but also through the networking, through the lunches, and just in those more spontaneous conversations. So really excited to be part of it.